Welcome back, C++ code lovers. We continue with our session on our series of procedural programming. We're now getting into the most interesting parts of the code. We're almost done really with the basics, and we're just going to spend most of our time programming these things and getting to answer questions and stuff, I guess. We're seeing how we can use arrays and if-else statements with a combination of loops if you want to make very quick, efficient solutions, contrary to writing lots of if-else statements, redundant code, right? You don't have to repeat yourself. Remember the concept. Don't be dry. Don't repeat yourself. Right. Cool. We're going to continue with arrays. Now, arrays, as I said, the linear data structures. One-dimensional, it can be one-dimensional, two-dimensional arrays. We're going to explain what that means more in detail. But I think what we should focus on now is that arrays are linear data structures. Linear, as you saw in the board in a previous session, this they occupy a contiguous space in memory. So contiguous means continuous, right? So if you make an array to store strings, for example, you can count out the size of the array. So you use, and here I just have code for this. This is our previous code. So nothing much there. You can always add return zero at the end when you're done. So just say return zero. This is the previous code, and I can get the size of the array. So I can get int. Maybe I want to know the size of this. Let's say size of months. Okay. I'm just going to save that there. Of course, never forget your semicolons. Unless you're doing Python, but for C++, our int size is equal to size of that. For C++, that's how you get the size of an array. In Java and Python, it's a bit easier to do that. But C++ is a more powerful language anyways. Alright, so I'm just going to compile that. I think we called it arrays.cpp. Let's say age, exe, enter the amount of month. Let's try 12. The 12th month is, 12th month is December. And it's not yet printing out the size as I would love it to because I haven't written any cout statements. I'm just going to say cout the size. Alright, there goes again. I'm going to compile that. Don't forget to compile and I'll run it. So 12, and there goes 288. So it's printed out the size of the whole array. It has 12 elements. A string, you can find out how many bytes a string is by just saying size of one element. So size of months, maybe let's say months at position, any position you want, position one. It will give you the size of one element. Cool. Then you can print that out. So I've compared it. Enter number for the month, 11th month. The 11th month is November. And here you can see it, guys. One string is 24 bytes of memory. That's really a lot of bits. If you multiply that by 8, I think that should be like, I'm not sure, 160 something, 192, if my math is correct in my head. 192 bits of memory. That's quite a lot. When I think of it, that's quite a lot, but that's a string. That's how much space a string occupies. Alright, so these are one-dimensional arrays with these limits, and you can do lots of things with these arrays. Let's try to find maybe the biggest number among a list of numbers. Remember when we first started, first lesson, we talked about how you can use computers to find out the summit by getting pictures and choosing the prettiest, although it was arguable what characteristics you'd be using to measure out the beauty, of course, right? But let's let's do something like that. Instead of finding the prettiest, we don't know who the prettiest woman is of them all. We'd have to ask the mirror on the wall for that. But here, let's try to find out the biggest number among a group of numbers. Right. I'm going to say that and now just say biggest. Now this is an exam type question. Sorry. biggest is CPP. Then you could like include other streams. This int main. Right, and that goes. I'll make a list of numbers. Let me say now I'll make it random. It will be integers. I'll call them numbers to be a list. I keep on using this. An array. Let's make some six of them. And we're looking for the biggest. So I'm just going to put out random numbers. Hoping the six. How many are these? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I don't know. I already entered 5, 6, or 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, those are 6 numbers. I'm just going to store a number. I'm going to create the biggest. The biggest. Maybe you maybe want to store the index of the biggest. So index. This is really a not much introduction to a more broader concept. This is a kind of the same things you use when you're dealing with searching and sorting algorithms. And you're going to see we're going to do our first sort and search algorithms. They're going to be the simplest algorithms anyways. It's a bubble sort, maybe merge sort, and search, linear search. We're going to see how we can search for a number or a name among the list of numbers. Alright, so I'm going to run a for loop. I'm going to say int I is equal to 0, I is less than the 6 numbers, and then I plus plus. Okay, that goes. And what's next? What's next? And then I'll say the biggest, let the biggest number be equal to the first number. So I'll say here, I'll say biggest is equal to numbers at index 0. That's the first number, right? I'm assuming the biggest is the first number. Then as I loop through this array, I'll say if the number at index I is greater than the biggest. Then I'll say then let biggest, the new biggest, be equal to number at index I. By the time you're finishing this, you have had found the biggest number in the list, and then you just say out the biggest number is biggest. Goodness. Alright. That works quite right. And then index for the biggest is going to be that, so you can, that's if you want to store the index in it. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. I don't think it matters whether it's great or not. Okay, I'm going to go to terminal. New terminal. I've saved that. I'm going to run that. G++ biggest is CPP. Alright, the biggest number is 76, and you can see here in the list is 76. And let's make this even more interesting. Let's ask the user to enter a list of numbers, and then from the list of numbers, the user will select which one is the biggest. Again, I'm only using one if statement. Now this is doing this 6 times. It's checking for all the numbers in the list, right? But it's only one, and my code is really short. That's the importance of using loops. You don't have to write, you don't have to be redundant. You don't have to repeat yourself and write many if else, if else, if else, as if you're a math person. They don't do that. Well, with the power of loops, all you have to do is write out simple code, understandable code, and you're good to go. Cool. So this helps the user to enter the numbers. So I'm going to make an array of 6, and I'm not going to assign this yet. I'm going to tell them to enter the numbers. So I'll use a for loop. I'll say C in J is equal to 0. I'm just using a different index. You can watch the video and for loops to just understand how that works. j is less than 6, and j plus plus. So we're going to be asking them see out into the numbers of the list. Or it's called a list, an array in other languages, called a list in other languages, called an array in C++, still something. And we'll say see out, enter a number. Want to repeat this multiple times. Let me not leave a space there. I'll just say C in number. Cool. I didn't make a number, so I'll make a number. It's very easier. Number. And then I'll enter the C in number. After entering the number, I'll store numbers at index j will be equal to the number you've entered. Okay. Then another for loop, we'll search through the list of numbers and find out the biggest of those numbers. Okay, so enter the list of numbers. I'm going to enter my numbers. We started 45, 32. I've entered enough at 5, 6, 7, 12, 87. Alright, there it goes. The biggest number is not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be the number 87. So there's something wrong with our code. Let's just go back and debug it. Alright, so am I facing an error? It's because I didn't initialize biggest. So I'll say let biggest be equal to number at index 0. Yeah, so let the first one be the biggest, and then we can run our code again. Terminal new terminal. Just gonna say j plus plus. Alright, enter number. I'm going to enter random list again. Alright, there goes. The biggest number is 87. Now we can do the same to find the smallest. So I'm just going to make another integer. Int smallest. I can do the same to find the smallest number. I just say let the smallest be equal to the first one also. I'm just giving it the initial value. Let the smallest be equal to numbers at index 0. And I'll say if numbers at index I is less than smallest. If it's less than, then the new smallest number will be equal to that numbers at index I. Cool. Save that. And then we'll run it. Enter a number. I'm going to enter different numbers. Now here I'm looking for both the biggest and smallest number. This is going to be an exam type question, so it may come in exam. Just know how to do it. Okay, now I've only printed out the biggest number in my cell. You can look at this code nicely. So I may also want to print out the smallest. Okay, as you can see, the code is not that long. So if you just know what you're doing, you don't have to stress loads. Some are going to use lots of these if-else statements, if-else statements. I don't think maybe you marked correct. I'm not sure I know, but that's how you do that one. Right. So I'm going to enter the same list of numbers: 56, 23, 12, 45, 65, and 11. So there goes the biggest number is 65. The smallest number is 11. And that's how you do it, folks. That's how you find the biggest and smallest numbers of arrays using for loops and arrays, or among a list of numbers using for loop and array. So here again, I didn't have to to write out 6 cout statements saying enter number, enter number, enter number. I didn't have to write 6, or rather, it's going to be 12 if else statements for the biggest and the smallest. That's a waste of time. That's a waste of code. You don't do it like that. I've seen lots of people doing like this, and I just kept wondering. I mean, you're going to hate C++ if you do it like that. That's why you have arrays and functions. Let's try out another exam type questions, and then in our next session, we're going to see how we can use arrays to write out the Pascal's triangle. That's of course if you love math. Now for the info, it's going to be counting number of words. I'm just going to say words.cpp. Words in a sentence. Come. Let me include. Now this one actually came on my exam last year, and I answered it. Int men. Okay, cool. You can make a string, and you call the string words. Maybe you ask the user cout, enter a sentence. So we don't want to count the number of words. That's going to be too much. We want to count the number of letters. Okay, let's start with the number of letters. In another session, we're going to count the number of words. Number of words is more complicated than the number of letters. Okay, you're going to enter a sentence, cin. Now, here's the trick. If you don't, cin only works for one word. The moment you put a space, it breaks the word. So if you want to get a whole sentence, use getLine, then use cin, and the sentence you want to get. That's more correct. Cool. And here goes. So you're going to make a character array, and say character array. Okay. And I just make a character array like that. I don't know how many elements it's going to have. So how I do it is a string is by default a character array. So think of a string as character array. So I can say int size of my character array is going to be equal to size of my word. Right. And then this is going to have size. Before I can print out, I can run out any other code. Let me just print out size to see if I'm doing it correctly. We say G++, wait, CPP, enter a sentence, I love mangoes. Right, that's about 24. Do I really have 24 words there? No, not really. I'm just going to clear out. Okay, so size of word divided by size of words, word. I think it's 0. Okay, that's storing a string. I'm going to say I compile it. So let's compile it. Then I run it. Okay, enter a sentence. I love mangoes. 24. I still have 24. I'm not supposed to be 24. Oh, okay, that's correct. Cool, that's correct. Because that's a string. A string is about 24 bytes. So that's giving me the size of the string. That's cool. Now I want. Okay, looks like I'm still getting 24 anyways. Well, for now, I want to get input from the user. I just enter out my own sentence. So just say I'm a character array, and I don't have to initialize it. I just say wait is equal to hello there. How are you? That's going to be a character array. So it's not getting there. I'm going to delete that. I'm also going to delete that. Maybe I should also delete that. Okay, cool. Then you want to know how many elements this has. So int, now remember here the both empty spaces and characters. So we just want to count the number of empty spaces and ignore the number of characters. Or maybe we also want to count out the number of empty spaces. So we're going to use a loop for that. So say int size is going to be equal to the size of the whole array, the whole word array. That's been divided by size of the array at only one index, index 0. Okay. That's going to give me the number of elements in the array that's going to break. And then from there, I use a for loop. So for int I is equal to 0, I is less than size, I plus plus. I'm going to traverse this whole array. I'm going to traverse the array. I'll say if word at index I is equal to a space. And I should make two variables. I'll make one count to the characters int characters. After that equals to 0. And then I make one the count of spaces. Spaces also set equals to 0. So if it's a space, I'll say spaces plus plus. Increase the number of spaces by 1. Else, it's not the space meaning it's a character. I increase the characters plus plus by 1. Okay, I'm just going to say at the end, see out the array has, that's going to be characters, number of characters, and sorry, and spaces, number of spaces. Don't forget to add return 0. I'll just compile and run that. So compile it, run it. Okay, you have 27 number of characters and 4 number of spaces, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. Count the number of characters to verify. But sure, guys, that's how you do it, and that's how you count out the number of characters and spaces in a word. In our next session, we're going to see how to find Pascal's triangle, and then we see how you can count out the number of words in a sentence, which is more interesting than this.